All right, awesome. Welcome to the Cool Data Project Show. I am Kristen Kerrer, a developer advocate for Comet. And if you are using APIs to work with large language models, you should absolutely be using Comet's new functionality for prompt management. We integrate with LangChain and OpenAI, and you can start playing right now with the full functionality in the free community edition of Comet at comet.com. And today we have Natan, the CEO of Anote, and he is going to share all about what he's been working on. So can you please introduce yourself and give us a brief description of what you've been building?
Yeah. Hey, Kristen. My name is Natan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Anote. Essentially, you can kind of think of Anote as the interface that turns general purpose generative AI models to domain-specific use cases, incorporating people's feedback to make the outputs of LLMs really practical to your specific use case.
All right, awesome. And did you have like a specific motivation behind this project? What got you started? It's very timely. Did you start before or after it all got very sexy?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we've been interested in LLMs and AI for a while, probably around 3 or 4 years, and really kind of before the AI hype, just because we were like really curious about the world and saw AI as a tool to kind of explain how things happen. Um, and yeah, I guess the motivation, I've spent over 10,000 hours building AI projects, a bunch of different things, such as like autonomous trash picking robots or AI generated music, classification problems on documents, looking at federated learning from medical images. And over time, there's just like a common theme that came up that was just like, hey, these AI models are getting incredibly good and really powerful. People are also really good at their specific niche and domains, and people want to really be able to do what they want to do in like the best way possible. So, so Anna, you can kind of think of as like the interface that enables that, and we kind of support a lot of tasks like classification, name entity recognition, question answering on documents, prompting, and enable humans to kind of be in the loop to yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. You just talked about a lot of stuff there. Do you want to give us a quick demo of the platform?
Yeah, for sure. I can share my screen, and if there's any kind of questions you might have, we can kind of go through them too. But yeah, I'd say Anna as a whole, is basically kind of based on a few kind of philosophies. Like the first is that there's a need for an interface that fuses generative AI models with domain-specific use cases, customizable to kind of any task, any type of text data, specifically for you. And I guess we'll go through, like a few examples of like how this works in practice. So the first example, I'd call this like the hierarchical classification example. And you can kind of think that maybe we have like a data set of Amazon reviews, and we want to kind of categorize them into the specific buckets, such as like clothing, electronics, and home. And then within like electronics, maybe there's like sub buckets such as like phones, cameras, and TVs. Then within phones, maybe we want to know like the specific type of phone, like iPhones or Androids. And this is actually a really common problem that a lot of businesses face. But you can imagine as your taxonomy would get like really complex, just a simple zero-shot classification model might not cut it. Might get like a certain degree of accuracy, but if you want to kind of get a really high accuracy, you kind of need to incorporate human feedback to like learn. So on Ano, we have kind of a product that, you can kind of upload your data. You can kind of add these sort of like categories, subcategories. You can delete ones that are bad. You can add new ones if you'd like. Then you have the optionality to add these kind of labeling functions, which, you can kind of think of as like keywords for specific categories or, or entities that might be indicative of a specific category. And after you do that, you kind of have this interface where you can kind of annotate. You can skip items if you're not sure. You can kind of highlight items if you kind of think it's important. And then as you kind of make like labels, we will kind of like learn based on your input to kind of adjust the model in real time in such a way that you can kind of just go and like download the results on the category, subcategory, subcategory aspect of your data set. You can kind of search for, specific rows. Yeah, I guess there's like other cases too, so for instance, one thing we constantly see from people that are interested in AI is that they'll kind of ask ChatGPT these sort of questions, and maybe they want to like summarize a long document or kind of ask a series of like yes, no, maybe questions. And ChatGPT, or other LLMs might give you like good output, but it might not be like ideal for your specific use case. So in Anote, we kind of are able to take these LLMs as, like input on these kind of documents where you can just kind of ask questions. And then you can kind of see the results from the LM, and you can kind of like edit the results to make it be like what you kind of want to talk about. Like OmniJape is great. And then we'll kind of learn based on the differences between what's predicted and what we actually kind of do to make the model like better in real time that you can kind of download. And then I guess kind of the last thing that is like kind of a core capability that we're like actively working on is what I call name entity recognition. So a lot of times, you want to find like entities in text, and you aren't necessarily sure, which part of the text is an entity, and a zero-shot model might not just cut it. So you can kind of have a zero-shot entity model as like a starting point. And then as we can kind of iterate and highlight entities that are right or remove entities that are wrong, the model will basically learn in real time to get you a more tailored, accurate NER model like this. So you can kind of see here, we have this interface. You can kind of highlight words that might be indicative of specific things. And then as you kind of make these highlights, we're learning in real time to basically provide tailored responses to finding entities. So you can kind of think here, there's labeling functions you can have for specific entities with keywords and entities, and you can kind of learn in real time for, the entities you highlight to get more tailored like results that you can just like download. And the way it kind of works is you have like projects, and in a project you can have multiple people there, and then you can have what I'd call data sets that you can kind of go in, review, and you can add collaborators to kind of incorporate human feedback to make projects better.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, nothing. Just Scott. It's just Scott. And you said tailored responses. So, of course, it's Scott Taylor, and he wrote tailored responses. And Scott, you're the best. We love you. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for that demo. And so you had mentioned a couple times that, zero-shot learning might not be enough, and you're using few-shot learning. Would you mind telling us a little bit about, sort of your thought process when you were thinking about algorithms, or maybe just the differences?
Yeah. So I guess for some context, right, there's like in like the field of AI, there's like really easy problems, and there's like medium problems, and there's like hard problems. And a lot of like the easy problems, you can actually solve just straight away with like generative AI and calling GPT or Claude. And then there's kind of this domain of problems that are like relatively complex that like they just won't cut it for. Like for instance, one of our customers, has a bunch of websites of data, and they're trying to find like the names of ships in these websites, right? And you can kind of think that if you have like a zero-shot LLM to try to find the names of ships, it might not get every single ship name. It might mess things up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do you actually incorporate human feedback to like build upon that? And as you kind of actively learn from people, you can kind of have a combination of zero-shot models, few-shot models, traditional ML models to get you the right input depending on the amount of feedback you have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Were there any like specific gotchas along the way while you were building this? Did you, run into any problems?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems out there.
There's always problems. I know. I ask it like, were there problems? And there's always problems.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really interested in doing a lot of really custom tasks specific to, their specific domain, their specific niche. Um, and a lot of people's niches are like a lot different, right? So I think when we started out building Anote, what we did is we'd build like custom GitHub repos for like every single customer. And over time, we realized that it's kind of important to have some sort of like
Feel that.
scalable solution. So we've been trying to figure out how to best do that. And I'd say like the biggest challenge right now, in my opinion, in the AI space is that there's all these like really incredible AI models right out there. And then there's kind of a bunch of people, and there's a pretty big gap between what the AI models can do and what, people know. And it's like, how do you kind of equip people with like the tools and knowledge to actually accelerate a lot of the things that they'd love to do with AI, with AI?
Yeah, I believe that because there is such a learning curve. I do a lot of projects, and I run into a lot of problems during those. And I'll lose like a day sometime chasing something down that, if I just had the knowledge, it wouldn't be that much of an issue. But I can just imagine there's a lot of more people like me out there who aren't software engineers, but also know a little bit about models and end up really stuck. So what are you currently working on this project? Like, it sounds like you are live, you're taking customers, so you're actively selling this. But like, what sort of functionality are you working on next? And what's that sort of motivated by?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of interesting projects we're working on now. There's one kind of specific research challenge that we are like really interested in trying to figure out,
Mhm.
which might be helpful to share. Yeah, so I guess one challenge that we're looking into now is you can imagine like all these LLM outputs from like GPT or Anthropic or Claude or another LM, and then you can kind of imagine like human feedback based on like annotations or things that they kind of notice in documents or text data.
Mhm.
We want to figure out a way that we can like learn based on the human feedback to like auto adjust these LLMs to make them more domain specific. And so we have like a few ideas there. The first kind of idea is, to take a difference between the predicted and actual text in like the embedding space, and then try to like feed that difference or a summary of the difference into the LM. And we're also looking into like custom built solutions for that. And I guess like the reason this is like an important problem is that a lot of times if you aren't like a super great prompt engineer and you don't know like the right questions to ask, you'll kind of hit like a model like GPT and it'll give you an output, but you're like, this is great, but how can I even use this or apply it to my problem? Um, so that's kind of where we're trying to learn.
Yeah, awesome. Um, I'm a little hung up because I feel like there's a lot there, but I'm not sure exactly what to ask. Is there like something specific that got you, one day you woke up and you were like, hey, I need to build something for helping to annotate edge cases on LLMs? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, I think when we started out, I was just really interested in like the data labeling domain specifically.
Hmm.
The reason I was interested in this is because I've worked on a few projects where I'd work with a team of subject matter experts or manual annotators to kind of label a lot of data to train my like AI and ML models. And it wasn't just that this process was like extremely tedious or time consuming or like costly or expensive, or the labels were like often wrong, or you have
Hmm.
to like merge all these labels between different folks. But the real kind of challenge I noticed is like scalability. So essentially, all these times when you'd kind of label data, business requirements would basically change. And you'd want to kind of like add more data or add more categories or remove things, and you have to kind of label everything again and again and again. So I started out really interested in that specific domain, looking at a lot of solutions in the market. Um, and over time, from there, just got really interested in like LLMs and like the power of them, and kind of noticed that, there are these kind of new starting from GPT-3 to like SetFit to like Alexa TM to concise concepts. There are all these kind of new open source LLMs that were enabling you to kind of learn with just like a few example data points on, tasks that would traditionally have like required like a ton of manual labeling intervention. So kind of started out researching those algorithms, reading a lot of papers. Then over time, it's kind of become clear that, data labeling is just like an application of what we're trying to build. But in the essence, you can kind of think of all these kind of AI problems that, may or may not be trained on a large corpus of manually labeled data. But even with these kind of API based models, they aren't really perfect for what you as a person actually want. So you can kind of think like, even if you have a lot of labeled data, you'll always need to kind of adjust the data, refine the data just to trigger your API model. So we kind of wanted to be that interface that like enabled that to happen just in like real time from people.
Mm-hmm. And so when somebody's using the tool and they're annotating their own data, that's only adjusting the model for themselves, right? Like other customers wouldn't be able to benefit from those annotations that they just made.
Yeah, so your data is kind of normally kept like private and secure, so we can't really like share the benefits with like other folks. Though I think in like a few months we'll probably be releasing our like developer version, where we'll be like kind of plugging into like open source models out there, and you can kind of basically generate your new models specific to your domain and your like labels that you can kind of maybe share with other folks.
Right. Yeah, no, that's what I was sort of thinking about. And then just the thought that, so many people do label data wrong. And then what happens when, it'll be interesting to see how it goes once you put something open source.
Yeah, I think Anote right now is a great like user interface to enable that. But I think in the future, where like the real opportunity lies is like trying to have like some sort of programmatical interface that like even if you're a developer, you can kind of use this to like adjust your data and adjust your model in like real time.
Nice. So, obviously you're trying to use this for a number of different use cases, but what type of customer does this best serve? Is it, the data scientists that are more likely to be labeling data, or just is there like a particular industry?
Yeah. So I guess I can go through a few like use cases where this could be like extremely helpful. The first, is if you have like a set of tweets, right? And you're trying to kind of do like decide if a tweet's like toxic or not toxic. And then like maybe, you have sub buckets of like, hey, within a tweet that's toxic, there's like specific other areas, you can kind of think of this being helpful there. Also with like 10K documents in finance, right? This is kind of documents that you'll have like lots of teams of like analysts going through. And like just like kind of manually labeling or extracting information. And there are LLMs in like the finance sector that are good, but like not super specific to your specific domain. So that's like another application. And yeah, I'd say we've kind of built this more as like a general purpose tool that can be applied to like sectors like finance, particularly like towards like data scientists who, experience the problem like firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself a data scientist, or are you more, you're a data scientist?
Yeah.
Are there any other cool features that you're planning to build out soon? Like, do you have some really cool things that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few projects in the pipeline that we're building that I think are cool that are like a little unrelated to like Anote specifically, but
Yeah.
that are like very interesting nonetheless and just show like the applications of this technology. So I guess one project we're building right now with our team is what I call like the LinkedIn scraper. So the idea is you kind of go through all the data on LinkedIn. You kind of can get all your connections and generate like an email to them that you can kind of compose it like ChatGPT you can like auto adjust your email and then like send it to folks for like sales or for finding a job. We're also building like an autonomous newsletter right now. So the idea is like when you search on like Google News, you can kind of search like a keyword like artificial intelligence, and then you can generate like a list of kind of summaries of these articles that appear, as well as like links to the articles that you can kind of send out as like an email blast. Um, and I guess something else we're building is something I'm really excited about, which is kind of like a chat GPT for your business. So you can kind of upload a bunch of your documents, and you can kind of ask questions in them. And then like chat GPT will kind of give you answers, and you can kind of converse with these like 100-page long documents that might be like pretty personal to you. So as well as like within your entire corpus of your like enterprise or company. And we're building in like a pretty privacy preserving way. So like you don't really need to like share your sensitive data like across the cloud. But yeah, there's like a lot of projects out there that we're working on. I'd say Anote is like our flagship product, but we're always like interested in building new things. So
You're like playing with all the things. No, and I love that, right? Because, where ChatGPT is only trained up through 2020 or something, as a business, if you want to use it for business contexts, one, it's not going to have your business data because it wasn't part of the corpus anyways. But secondly, even if it did, it wouldn't have been, recent enough probably. So to make it easy for people to train it on their own corporate data, I could see that being very exciting for a lot of companies. For sure. And so if somebody was out there and they were looking to get into machine learning, what type of advice would you give them?
yeah, I'd say right now there's kind of a transition from, needing to know all about the math and science behind machine learning and needing a PhD to just needing to know how to like prompt the models as like a person. So I think the nomenclature is like the English language is the new form of AI. So you should really just like learn how to ask models like specific kind of questions, and that it can kind of take care of a lot of the bulk work ahead of time. I'd say also there's a lot of courses out there. Like I for one like taught a course called like Breakthrough AI, and a lot of the code as well as like notebooks for that are like open source. So it's just like a great primer on like how to learn about AI, how to code in like Python, how to use like data science. There's also some like interesting courses like the MIT deep learning course, which is like a free course that anyone can kind of use, as well as like the Hugging Face like Transformers course, which I found pretty cool. Then I guess if you're like kind of curious about like more of like the latest and greatest research out there, on Anote we have like a Medium where we just kind of post a lot of articles that just kind of go through some of like these really interesting papers and just summarize the key points in them.
Ooh, I like that. I like that because the reading the papers, you have to stare at it a little longer. It's like the Cliff's Notes to papers.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you don't want to read the entire thing, but you just want like the English version of like why it's cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. And if you want to link to any of those in the comments, or you can like share those links with me, and I can put them in the comments on the thread. So not right now, but if you want to get them back to me afterwards. Is there anything else that you feel like you need to share with the world that we haven't chatted about yet?
Yeah, I guess I'd say like there's like in my opinion like the biggest issue and problem in like the AI world is that right now, people who know a lot about AI and machine learning are like way ahead of the curve from people who don't. And it's going to kind of permeate, in my opinion, towards like pretty large inequality where people who know how to use these tools are going to basically be able to do things like 10 times faster and better than a lot of folks who just aren't really ahead of the curve. And so at Anna, we're trying to think of like the best way to kind of equip folks with like necessarily like uh, knowledge to kind of use kind of all these AI tools like ChatGPT, and to understand like a little bit of like the implications of AI. And so we're always open to ideas on like how to best do that. I think we're trying to figure out like whether it would be an event or like just like a kind of a group gathering. But I think in our eyes, we just want to like help people leverage AI for good and not for bad. So we're trying to figure out like the best kind of community to do that in.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I 100% see that too, because finally, like on Reddit, you'll see in other communities that aren't ML related, and like machine learning has absolutely become mainstream, but at the same time, like there's just so few people who actually understand how to use it. We do have a couple questions that we haven't answered yet. So Kate wanted to know, she loves your slogan, and how did you come up with it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think we initially had like a pretty bad slogan, and then someone recommended that we use it, and we're like, okay, we should probably. Yeah.
Real compelling story, yeah. Awesome. And then we have Jeremy. Can you tell me what LLM backends this will work with? Do you anticipate any difficulties with working with a specific foundational LLM?
Oh yeah. So the general idea is like, at least for like Hugging Face LLMs, Bard, GPT, Claude, you just basically be able to like sync them in as your initial like classification or NER model or prompting model. And then that would kind of feed it as like your zero shot model. And as you kind of incorporate human feedback, you'd either reprompt these models, retrain your algorithms, or like fine tune the results depending on the specific model you'd use. I don't know about like all LMs, right? Like some people write LMs in like really interesting, difficult to replicate ways. But I'd say like most of the major providers, they'll basically be able to sync with.
All right, awesome. If somebody wanted to find and follow you, how would they do that?
I just have like a LinkedIn. You could just connect, as well as my email. It's like vidranatan@gmail.com. It's probably the best way to reach me.
All right, awesome. Ooh, we've got another. Do you think there will be a time when we would be able to retrain some layers of the LLM models so that we can solve very specific use cases? Which is a little bit of what you're trying to work to do, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'd say things will be. So there's kind of this idea of like general purpose AI, artificial general intelligence, and it's very much a murky word, such a research field. Like, what is AGI? And in my opinion, like these models, like generative AI, are going to keep getting really good, but people are also going to be really, really good. So, kind of as you incorporate human feedback, you'll basically be retraining or reprompting or fine tuning your LLMs to help you solve these like very specific use cases, such as like finding names of ships and websites, or like, hierarchical classification for ads, or let me ask questions on these legal documents that I need to be like a really great lawyer in, or the specific finance use case. And that's kind of where I see like the opportunity, right? Like even the best general purpose AI models, won't really be domain specific. They probably aren't recommended to be used for like your specific niche, but they're more of like a starting point from where you can build off with human feedback.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, yeah, because that totally is the issue, right? Like we have access to ChatGPT, but everyone who wants to use it now is like, okay, I'm going to take this model and now I have to comply with regulations on top of it, which may be different by state, right? Or county, who knows? And then, all of the different like logic that you want to put on top of it just to sort of fit, the feel or whatever, or the types of replies that you want to have. And that's just, it's like amazing that, there's going to be companies all over the world that are doing the same thing, right? And they're building out for the same regulations. And hopefully, someday we can have like a model that would work for hospitals in Massachusetts, or, the utility industry in Virginia, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. And it's a super cool problem that you're working on. So Thank you so much for joining us today. I learned a lot. I thought that this was an awesome discussion. And yeah, if you have any last couple words you want to share before we end, or
Yeah, just thanks for the opportunity, Kristen. It's great to chat, and yeah, I'm here if you need anything. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And thank you so much, Natan, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.